You know, there's a concept in English that says familiarity breeds contempt. That we get to start taking for granted our beloved ones, our spouses. And we start seeing them in a different light. First, when we're dating and we initially get married, we have such noble ways of looking at them. We admire them to no end. If he's ambitious when we first got married, suddenly years later we call him a workaholic. What used to be an attentive spouse is now possessive. What was considered a confident person that we dated and we first got married to, we now call them arrogant. When he or she was considered cool in our eyes, we now call them cold or frigid. When they were considered funny when we first dated them or got married, we now call them a show-off. When we considered our spouse initially or our dating partner to be funny, now we call them a snob. What was considered laid back, we now call them lazy. What we considered our dating partner or our husband or wife initially a playful, we now call them immature. What was considered modest for a girl or a wife is now called pure prude. Opinionated now has become argumentative. Optimistic is now considered stupid years later in marriage. Quiet has become too quiet. What we used to consider our dating partner or our spouse romantic, we now call a stalker. What we considered them sincere years later in marriage, we call them now brutally honest. And what we considered simple when we first got married, we now call boring. And when we can call them him or her smart years ago, we now say, oh, he's a show-off. And when we call them trusting, we now call them gullible. What happens is, if we're not careful in keeping our eye on the goal of maintaining the marriage, values start to erode. And the positive adjectives turn into negative adjectives. Your mission in this world is to work on that marriage and keep an eye on it constantly to ensure that the way you view your spouse 30 years down the line, 20 years down the line, is the same way you viewed each other when you first got married. What are the ingredients for a successful marriage? That's a good question. So many people go into marriage totally unprepared to work at it, unprepared to commit, unprepared to sacrifice, unprepared and unwilling to bend, unwilling to compromise and respect each other, and unwilling to devote themselves to making each other happy. Let me just... So again, I want to start again. What are the ingredients?